Did you see the look on Melania Trump's face?
She's not a bishop. She doesn't have holy orders. She's just LARPing.
Who gave Donald Trump a wee bit of a lecture.
Mr. President, millions have put their trust in you. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now.
When it comes to illegal immigration, how do they frame this? They always frame it as who is going to do our work for us, who are our servants. This is a grotesque argument because they always defend it by saying we need poor people to exploit.
Even the Vatican understands that you have to regulate immigration. They've tried to clamp down on their own immigration problems, apparently, at Vatican State.
This isn't what it's about. As you're going to be speaking with Michael Hitchborn here in a few minutes, as he'll talk to you about, it's about money.
By the way, my name is Joe McClane. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below.
We're going to be talking about Catholic bishops versus the Trump administration immigration plan with Michael Hitchborn coming up at 30 past the hour. But, the hits don't stop there because just yesterday at a national prayer service, air quotes here, I'm using air quotes here, a bishop of the Episcopalian variety had this to say to Donald Trump in front of his face.
There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meatpacking plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation. But the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals.
Especially the ones that clean your rectory, I imagine, air quotes, bishop. Joining us now to talk about all of this is Dr. Anthony Stine from Return to Tradition. Good morning to you, Dr. Stine. Thank you for being on with us.
Good morning. And I just want to correct you on one thing. There's an actual term out there for people who are very confused about the nature of their holy orders like that, and that's a bishopess or a bishopette. Because she's not a bishop. She doesn't have holy orders. She's just LARPing as one. And that's not because she's an Episcopalian, which is sort of like the Episcopal Church I described yesterday on X being essentially activists considering Christ, because that's about as close as you can get to them.
Right.
But do you notice the two framings there that she gave? One, I'm going to be the bearer of bad news for her, but there are no such thing as transgender children. Only children who've got parents who are warped and pushing this nonsense on them, or teachers pushing this nonsense on them. And the other, if you're talking about quote unquote gay and lesbian children, well, I would look to see who the adults are around them and then ask those children who touched them, because that's not normal. Okay, it's not normal for kids to be thinking about this stuff. But the other thing, when it comes to illegal immigration, how do they frame this? They always frame it as who is going to do our work for us, who are our servants. This is a grotesque argument because they always defend it by saying we need poor people to exploit. So we need the most desperately poor people imaginable to exploit. That's how they frame this. It's one of those that always gets me angry because they're advocating for the exploitation of the desperately poor. That's what they're advocating.
It's a false charity too. And it's one of those things I think too many Catholics are going to fall for this. They're going to see this and they're going to feel so sympathetic by this and look at the cold and heartless heart of Donald Trump's just sitting there and the Catholic J.D. Vance, but it's a false and it's an error of charity. It's not true
when
charity.
The video footage emerges of all the crying people at the border, families and children who are crying when places are raided and all that stuff, because the media is going to dump that all over the internet and all over TV. They've already started. You saw the footage that came out, what was it, on Inauguration Day. That afternoon, there was footage from the border where there was a lady was crying because that illegal app that the Biden administration had promulgated that allowed them to circumvent the entire legal process, that got shut down by the government.
Yeah.
Day one. And people were crying at the border. And that video footage went viral. That's your preview. Because they want to exploit the desperately poor for political purposes and for economic purposes. They don't care about those people.
Even the Vatican understands that you have to regulate immigration. I mean, just recently, they've tried to clamp down on their own immigration problems, apparently, at Vatican State. So even they understand you have to have law and order, and especially if you intend to be as charitable as you possibly can to your neighbor, to the stranger, to the sick, to the naked, to the infirmed, to the imprisoned. If you want to give charity to them, you've got to be able to do that in a ordered and regular way, given the amount of people and the number of people who need that type of charity. It just can't go unchecked, because then you get chaos. And how is that helpful to anybody?
Mm-hmm. But of course, this isn't what it's about. As you're going to be speaking with Michael Hitchborn here in a few minutes, as he'll talk to you about, it's about money.
Yeah.
This is a big dollar thing. It's not just the Catholic Church. See, every major denomination in the United States engages in this stuff, and so do the nonprofits. They all do this. They all take money from the government for this stuff. And he's going to go over the numbers with you, and they're staggering, absolutely staggering numbers. This is about money. I've long since done being charitable with people's intentions who want to exploit the desperately poor. What they want to do is lie to themselves. Because remember, the easiest lie to tell, the easiest lie to fall for is the one you tell yourself that justifies something else. In this case, well, Scripture tells us to welcome the poor, to welcome the refugee, and all this other stuff. And so they then use that to say, well, the government is offering me billions of dollars to go to do this thing, so let's do this thing, even if all you're doing is enabling the exploitation of people for political purposes and for economic purposes. That's all this is about.
Did you see the look on Melania Trump's face while this air quotes bishop was trying to lecture them? I mean, okay, I will say this. I don't think, because Donald Trump actually, let me just read this, because Donald Trump came out and he did have a response to all this today. I should share this. He says, the so-called bishop, I like that. You have never seen a bishop like this bishop. The so-called bishop who spoke at the National Prayer Service on Tuesday morning was a radical left hardline Trump hater. She brought her church into the world of politics in a very ungracious way. She was nasty in tone and not compelling or smart. She failed to mention the larger number of illegal immigrants that came into our country and killed people. Many were deposited from jails and mental institutions. It is a giant crime wave that is taking place in the USA. Apart from her inappropriate statements, the service was very boring and uninspiring one. She is not very good at her job. She and her church owe the public an apology. I mean, it's classic Trumpisms there. But I wanted to say this. I disagree with him about her tone. I thought, she felt compelled to say this to Donald Trump and to the rest of our country and the world yesterday. I thought she did so with a charitable tone. I don't think she was nasty in her tone. I think she felt convicted to do so, and she did. I disagree with her, of course, but I don't think her tone was nasty. What did you think about Donald Trump's response? I
think his response there was influenced by past things she said. One of the things that's gone viral on X since yesterday when this happened was footage of her from the past, getting on TV and telling people that one of the churches under her jurisdiction as a quote unquote bishop of the Episcopal Church was that one of her churches was getting burned down during the Summer of Love. And she said that was Donald Trump's fault. And then her going out there and preaching the gospel of Black Lives Matter and all that stuff. That's why he's probably responding in the way he is, honestly, because it's a gospel of materialism and the gospel of socialism, essentially, is what she's doing. And I understand why he was upset by it. But at the same time, sure, she probably believes it, because there are people who have replaced their faith with politics, and then they use their faith to justify really weird political things. And this is one of those things that I cannot understand how anybody could read the gospel and then come away with reading the gospel with the secularist social justice gospel, because it doesn't work. The gospel is the alternative, the only real alternative to the secular social justice gospel. But somehow people conflate them, and I don't understand how you get to that place.
Yeah. The looks on their faces, though, priceless. Melania Trump looked like she wanted to put that woman in a headlock. I mean, it was pretty intense. J.D. Vance, he had the look on his face like, wait, is this the off-Broadway version of Conclave? What are we watching here? This is bizarre.
No, he had that same famous look on his face from the Tim Walz debate.
Yes.
From a distance.
Yes. Yes. It's so funny, actually. But I got to say that Melania look needs to become a meme today because it's just a very, very pointed. But Donald Trump, he obviously, I think he tried to be as calm as he could and not allow his emotions to get to him. Do you think he's going to be good at that in his last 4 years? He's got nothing to lose in these 4 years. He doesn't have to run again after this. So do you think he's going to be unhinged in his tweets and all of that?
I think you're going to see some of that, sure. But my suspicion is you're going to see J.D. Vance become more of a mouthpiece as time goes on, especially after the midterms. When the next cycle begins, you'll probably see J.D. Vance become more of a front piece for the administration simply because he's very obviously the heir apparent. You don't choose a guy like that who is as eloquent as he is, as weirdly quasi soft-spoken, because he comes off as soft-spoken, but if you're actually listening to the things he says in response at debates, he's actually sucker punching people, but he's doing it in a way that is much more charitable in its delivery than what Trump is capable of. And I expect, and he's clearly supposed to be, MAGA 2.0 in 2028. We'll see what happens. It's a long time from now, but don't be shocked if he is used as the mouthpiece to say the more unpleasant things in a way that is viciously effective, but also palatable for people.
Yeah. How do you think it will go? I think birthright citizenship will end up at the Supreme Court. If it does, how do you think it'll land?
I predicted that was going to happen. I actually, yesterday in my live stream on the immigration thing, I talked about how the birthright citizenship thing will probably end up at the Supreme Court with the U.S. bishops as one of the parties to the lawsuit. A few hours later, 22 states had announced that they were taking it to the courts. Mm-hmm. The entire issue relies on a single line from the 14th Amendment, which is the top where it says, and subjects and do you have the 14th Amendment up? I have a pocket constitution here. Let me go to the 14th Amendment and we can go and talk about, I'll show you exactly which line I'm talking about here. Didn't expect it would go here, but essentially there's a line here where it's naturalized, meaning the birthright citizenship, people who are born here become citizens, but it also restricts that. There's a line in there that talks about how it is meant to be, if you are subject to the government, right? And that's who it's limited to. And children of visiting aliens are not subject to the U.S. government, except as anything other than guests. And now there's documents emerging from the people who wrote the 14th Amendment after the Civil War, explicitly saying it was not meant for foreigners.
Wow.
Okay. To the point where this went live on X yesterday. Somebody found out that they found it on the website of the National Archives, and then later it was deleted from the website of the National Archives.
Wow.
But
these are going to get very spicy.
This is getting very spicy, and they've actually already archived this online. Trust me, if they found that there, this is going to get into the hands of the conservative justices. This could take care of one of those long-standing thorny constitutional issues, which if you are at all worried that they're trying to use immigration to replace the American voting population with one more amenable to bigger, stronger authoritarian government, because a lot of people are concerned about that, this issue will wipe that out if it gets taken care of that way.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.